WretroMania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network is a Moonsault Media Production and is intended for private use only. For more information, contact retromaniapodcast@gmail.com.
Welcome to WretroMania Presents Catching Up. This is a special bonus-packed episode covering October and parts of November. I'm one half of the hosting squad, Coby Nida, and I am actually joined here via phone by Dave Rosenbluth, the mayor of Kicking Out at 2. Dave, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? Good to be back. Good to be back in the saddle. I'm really looking forward to talking some wrestling on a podcast. It's been a while.
Yes, it has, and due to unfortunate circumstances, things happen. I've been in the same situation before. It seems like, with podcasting, there's always some technical or physical difficulties. But we do this because it's a passion for us, and we love doing it. So we are back with you guys, and Dave, I can't thank you enough for joining me and taking time out of your schedule to talk wrestling.
Oh, I know. I appreciate it. I mean, I've been itching to get back into it for a while. Just to give everybody a heads up for those that don't know, right around Labor Day weekend, we had a massive rainstorm, and it caused flooding in my basement where I do my recording. Now, my equipment wasn't damaged, but the majority of my basement, the carpet needed to be pulled, and there needs to be some repairs that are taking longer than I would like currently at this moment. And with my current work schedule and the living situation, I couldn't really take my studio setup and move it somewhere else in the house. So I've kind of had to put Kicking Out at 2 on hiatus. But you can go check them out in the archives at WretroMania on Podbean, where you can find all the Kicking Out at 2 shows. So I'm hoping to get back in the swing of things by the new year. I was really hoping to kind of shoot for the holidays, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to be currently. So I'm hoping to shoot for the new year. I'm trying to come up with a different format. I'm still going retro, but I wanted to maybe focus on, like, for the most part, one singular topic or just a year in general. And in 2022, it's going to be the 25-year anniversary of pro wrestling in 1997, which was a big year for wrestling. A lot took place in 1997, so I'm thinking about just solely focusing on 97. Maybe every once in a while, if there's a special anniversary of something else taking place in a different year, then I'll cover it. But for the most part, I want to cover most of 97 with Raw and Nitro and some ECW, a lot of pay-per-views and things like that. For the most part, I'm thinking about doing the Raws and the Nitro watch-alongs and even the ECW TV watch-alongs in watch-along form, I should say.
Very cool.
So I'm still toying with some ideas as to what to do, but I want to kind of come back with a different vibe, different feel, and a different direction for the podcast as well. So
awesome.
I'll update more as time goes on when I have everything figured out. But right now, I'm just really looking forward to doing this with you today and catching up on what's been going on in the world of wrestling.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dave, I think that's a good idea. 1997, people say that might have been one of the greatest years in wrestling for a long time, There's other decades or years where people say like 88, 89, some say 86, or like 1992 was pretty interesting that we covered,
Well, actually, 92 is going to be the 30-year anniversary.
Absolutely.
So I've been wanting to cover the Ric Flair's Royal Rumble win for a long time, so that's definitely going to be on the schedule. That will be one of the few exceptions. Stuff that took place in different years. Occasionally taking a break from 97, like a Ric Flair Royal Rumble win, or WrestleMania 8 being one of my favorite WrestleManias. Actually, so things like that.
Very cool.
Even some WCW stuff that took place in 92, the War Games, which you and I covered on a bonus episode.
Absolutely.
So things like that. You know, a little off, on an off week where it's like, you know what, I'll give 97 a break here. I'm gonna pop in, 1992 where we cover this or whatever. You know what I mean? So
yes,
that's
indeed.
kind of the goal that I have in mind. Keep it more focused on 97, have one direction, but every now and then, when it calls for it, a special occasion, if you will, throw in something that's not 1997 wrestling related.
Very cool. Yeah, it's coming up on the 30 years of the 1992 anniversary of the year of wrestling, 30 years from that date. So if you go back in the archive, you can listen to our show, Marking Out the Days, Weekend Warriors, where we cover Saturday Night versus WWF superstars against WCW Saturday Night from 1992. We did it from like April all the way to December. So I'm gonna be re-releasing those on those days of the anniversary on our feed, kind of like a redux. But you can always go back in the archive, and they are there. So they're evergreen podcasts. Check them out. And there's a lot of anniversaries coming up. Like you said, 1997, a big year. So we're going to give you guys options. And that's why I want you to join the Facebook group. So you can go to Facebook and join and like WretroMania. And then there's a button that says join the group. And it's a private group, but you join and I'll let you in, and we can have polls there and questions. I asked a question recently about who people think is going to take the belt off of Kenny Omega in AEW. And Dave and another person, said Adam Page. So I listed some options there, but, we're going to actually have options for shows maybe, themes. What do you want to hear this week or coming up? And you guys get to have your voice heard and let us know what you want. And as always, you can find any of our podcasts by searching WretroMania with a W on any podcasting platform. That's Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcast, and our home is Podbean, where we have like 380 plus podcasts there, and they're all evergreen, like I said, and they're really fun. And I see that a lot of people have been digging in the archive since we've took a little bit of a hiatus. Now, cheap segue. Speaking of hiatus, let's talk about the company ROH, Ring of Honor. They might be taking a hiatus.
Yeah, it was a big story recently. The company released all of its talent. They got, I think, one or two more shows left that they're gonna put out this year, and then
Glory by Honor, and then Final Battle, which will be held in Baltimore, which I was going to go to, but unfortunately I have plans to go to New Jersey of all places. But yeah, I'm going to see a band there. So yeah, wow, it might be, like you said, a joke, their final battle. Yeah. So
very well could be. And of course, once news of that broke, then everyone, everyone speculated regarding these said talents maybe going to AEW, or if WWE would pick them up and put them in the new NXT. And there's been a lot of speculation regarding the future of Ring of Honor.
Well, let's read the statement real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Throughout the pandemic, our top priority was to keep everyone healthy and safe. And despite not producing any live events for over 18 months, we were able to keep everyone fully contracted. We now find ourselves at a time where we need to make changes to our business operations and planning to pivot for Ring of Honor with a new mission and strategy. This year will culminate with Final Battle in December. We will be taking the first quarter of 2022 to work internally and reimagine ROH. ROH has the most dedicated fans in the industry, and we appreciate their loyalty and patience as we reconceptualize ROH. We anticipate returning to live events in April for the Supercard of Honor with a new fan-focused product to provide a unique experience for wrestling fans. So yeah, that's the statement there. Like you said, the they're gonna let everybody go on their contract. They'll pay the people that wanted to stay throughout March, essentially, and then from there, this reimagined Ring of Honor will appear to us. Now, it's interesting because, nearly 20 years ago, Ring of Honor started. And they were a foundation for guys who are on top of the industry right now. A lot of guys that you see started their career in Ring of Honor, and they were given that opportunity. And it's interesting to see what has happened and how Ring of Honor evolved. They did do pretty well they tried to have pure wrestling, the focus during the pandemic, which was cool. It was a different direction. It was a different style of wrestling. It was old school, which I enjoyed. And some people don't enjoy that. Some people enjoy the AEW palette, a variety, or WWE, So I think Ring of Honor reimagining themselves, man, they had some eras where they were fine. It's just Sinclair, I don't think ever really tried. And they actually made a statement, a year or two ago about trying with, the money, and they have like infinite money. It's Sinclair Broadcasting, but they haven't focused on the wrestling or the production, it took them 10 years to update their cameras and lighting. So I don't know. I think if they reimagine it, they really need to put some oomph behind it, Yeah,
I mean, I don't follow Ring of Honor as much as you do, but I've followed some stuff loosely in the last few years. I remember when they were on Destination America, following Impact Wrestling. I thought that would have been there's been different instances and different periods of time where they've had a chance to elevate themselves to the next level, and for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. I thought
Madison Square Garden.
Well, yeah, I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
I'll definitely get to that in a minute. But the first being the
TV
time
deal.
slot on Destination America following Impact, or it was a lead-in to Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been a good opportunity for them to incorporate a crossover relationship with Impact. But at that time, I believe them and Impact didn't see eye to eye with other with a working relationship due to other issues that took place years prior. And then they were quickly off Destination America. That didn't last very long. And then when they started to build some steam, when they had, the Young Bucks and Cody, all the guys from the Elite that you currently see on AEW, and the relationship with New Japan, they were really catching their stride. And
they were on fire.
They were on fire. And they had the big Madison Square Garden show. Now, here's the thing that kind of that was baffling to me. If it wasn't for, let's say, Omega and the Bucks and Cody and all those guys, and just they play a significant role in them getting that Madison Square Garden show. Not taking anything away from the guys from New Japan that took part in Ring of Honor or the talent in Ring of Honor itself.
What about the NWA?
It was a collaborative effort, okay? But at the same time, those guys and their exposure and the way that they branded themselves and the niche audience that they had were very beneficial to Ring of Honor and the success of that company, getting them that Madison Square Garden show. What is crazy to me is they sold out the Garden, and I think everybody bought tickets thinking that they were going to see Omega and the Bucks and those guys. And not one person from that group was on that Madison Square Garden show. Granted, they were free agents at the time. Or no, I think AEW had just formed. I think it was like in the first quarter of 2019, AEW had just formed, and I think that they were on their way to do their first show, Double or Nothing, in Vegas that year. But anyhow, what I'm saying is that they had an opportunity to really elevate themselves. They could have been, if Sinclair put the money in, they could have been, I think, what AEW is currently right now. With those guys.
Do you think in a way do you think in a way the Elite sandbagged ROH during that Madison Square Garden time? Like, as far as like not participating or not wanting to be, like leaving the company in a way, they kind of like the way Tony Khan and WWE had scouted so much talent within the last 2 years and took all these talents from the bigger corporations, and now it's like a stacked roster in AEW, and WWE doesn't know what to do with them, so they're letting them go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there was something.
I don't think they sandbagged them. I mean, I don't personally know if that conversation was even had between
Right.
those guys and the company itself. I fully expected, and I didn't realize how much, I guess you could say, bad blood there was between Ring of Honor management and those guys from the Elite, because they, the narrative is that they dropped the ball not signing them, and that's
Right.
how these guys eventually came to AEW. That's the narrative. So I don't know how much bad blood there is, or if there was any to begin with, but I was under the impression that they would make some kind of an appearance, that there would be some kind of match with like the Elite on that Ring of Honor super card, at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And we didn't see any involvement from them.
Nope.
Which then led me to believe, okay, maybe it isn't as a friendly of a relationship as it once was.
Well, it's apparent they don't even include them in the Forbidden Door,
Yeah. So that was telling to me. But at the same time, you look at the timing of it. AEW formed and made their announcement at the first of the year in January, and we were in the first quarter of 2019 at that time. Ring of Honor and New Japan had the Supercard show at the Garden, and that was about a month and a half before AEW's first show, Double or Nothing, in Vegas. So I would imagine that those guys were pretty busy getting things together and lined up for their big show coming up in Vegas that year, that they didn't have time to be involved in the Supercard show. But at the same time, like I said, we don't know how much bad blood there was between both sides. And I know New Japan had some issues with those guys too as well, because they felt like they were left high and dry as well. So all I'm saying, my point being, as I've kind of gone around the block a couple times, Ring of Honor has had multiple opportunities to elevate themselves to the next level and be a major player. They were very close with, before all those guys left. They could have signed those guys up, but for whatever reason they didn't. And I think that's a big fault of Sinclair's. Like you said, Sinclair's a big television organization. They have multiple, stations around the country. They're a big organization from a television perspective.
The only times that I saw advertising for ROH on Sinclair television was when I was watching Ring of Honor on.
Well, yeah, and that's no different than what we would see with WCW.
Yeah.
When Turner owned it, when TNN had ECW on their channel, Spike TV, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
So it's no different. Ring of Honor, or at least I should say Sinclair, this is no different than when Turner owned WCW. They didn't know what they had when it came to their asset of a pro wrestling company.
Absolutely.
So therefore, they didn't have anybody that had a wrestling mind or someone that had interest in the wrestling business operating it and knowing how to get them from point A to point B. They just figured, pay the talent, set up shows, it'll grow from there. You know what I mean? So that it's another case of someone who doesn't have a strong interest in wrestling, owning that asset and not really knowing what to do with it. And then, when they realize that it is going to cost them some money to amp up their production and their marketing and their advertising, they don't want to do it because it doesn't have that appeal to them because it's wrestling. Mm-hmm. They want the benefits of what wrestling does for them, but they don't want to spend the money to get to that point.
Absolutely. It's like a write-off for them,
Yeah.
And some people have made that statement before in the past. But it sucks for the guys that are built a home there for 20 years. And the people that, the fans that love it. I was definitely an Honor Club member went to a couple Ring of Honor shows, and the Wrestle dudes, Kyle, Jimmy, Dan, and Will, they've went to a ton of Ring of Honor shows back in the day too. Shout outs to those guys. But yeah, it's interesting. What do you think? What do you think could happen with Ring of Honor coming up in April?
You know, I've heard that they're going to operate like an indie organization.
Back to the old days.
The talent that's available, and they'll just kind of take it from there. I don't think that that's going to be sustainable if they're trying to have storylines.
No.
If they're trying to, because they don't know which talent might be available the next month.
Well, that's kind of how Ring of Honor was in the beginning. It was just way too much.
Yeah, they were an indie organization. They just had just like most startups, they cycle talent in and out. I'll be honest with you, it sucks to say this, but I mean, if I were Sinclair, if you're not going to put serious effort into helping the brand and the product grow, then sell it. Sell your video library and sell the assets of the organization to someone who is going to take care of it, or who's going to use it to their benefit. Whether that's WWE buying the library and adding it to their network, or if it's even AEW.
That was my next statement. Yeah.
And signing some of the talent.
I think it would be beneficial for Tony Khan essentially to buy that library, because so many of his talent right now are those guys. And the biggest thing that's being advertised right now on Ring of Honor on Instagram is Adam Cole's anthology set, a 3-hour disc set. So, I mean, right there, he's in AEW. Bryan Danielson's there. CM Punk's there. You got a lot of people that can benefit from that library being added to a streaming service if Tony Khan chooses to do so.
And regarding that too, there's he's publicly stated that there are talks of doing some kind of AEW streaming service. I know Tony Schiavone mentioned it on his podcast recently that Turner and Time Warner Media that own TNT, that own HBO Max and all, like, we could see AEW on like an HBO Max or on their big I think HBO Max will eventually become like a Time Warner Turner streaming service. We could see AEW part of that, and if they were to purchase Ring of Honor, we could see that incorporated into that video library. But at the same time, there's also talk of AEW having their own streaming service in and of itself. Maybe with the backing of Time Warner Media. I don't know, but yes, like you're right. It could be very beneficial for them to have the Ring of Honor talent under their umbrella, and the video archive footage that they have. At the same time, WWE also has several Ring of Honor guys as well. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, names like that are under their umbrella. That the Ring of Honor footage could be useful to them as well. So it all depends on who's the highest bidder. But I personally feel like if Sinclair's not going to make a strong effort and they're just going to treat it like an indie and just kind of like take it from there, then I don't think it's going to last very long. That's just me personally.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I'm kind of on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happens, but then again, I don't have much faith in Sinclair, as they've shown over the years how they've appreciated the wrestling that they have there. I think the final battle might be their final battle, and if they do create something new or give us a new direction, it'll be something. I'm not sure how much they're going to promote it and put behind it. Like you said, it might not last long. So all right, let's move on. What is your thoughts and feelings? Have you caught any of the new NXT 2.0 since we haven't spoke since the new relaunch?
Yeah. I was when they changed up the concept. It reminded me a lot of like it was like an amped up version of what their developmental system used to be with like the OVW kind of concept.
Mm-hmm.
I like the look of like the show itself with the way that the performance center is set up. It's almost like a Roman Coliseum type thing with the stadium seating. Like I like that. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But they got out indied by AEW and they thought, all right, well it's time to throw in the towel. And I thought the NXT, the old NXT, which was a little more underground, a little more grittier, darker, I guess you could say. Like
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was working, but because it wasn't producing the numbers that they felt it should have up against AEW on a Wednesday, then they moved to Tuesday. That it was time to abandon ship. Um, I'm not a big fan of it. I understand why they're doing it. Um, I watched that first episode and there were some things I liked about it, but for the most part, there's way too much new in one show. Like they were introducing way too many new characters for me to give a shit about. Way too many, and I was like, wow, they're really like this. They're serious about this. Like there's very little semblance of what the old NXT was. You have Ciampa, Gargano, and Pete Dunne, and maybe a couple others. That Io Shirai. A few others that I don't remember off the top of my head.
What are your thoughts on Rex Steiner? Braun Breaker.
Oh, first of all, I hate the name, but second of all, I think he's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, he's green, but he's good. I mean, he's got the intensity like his dad.
Yeah.
And he's a natural.
I think he'll be a big deal eventually at some point. I like him. I didn't think that they were going to push him so quickly.
Did you enjoy the match with him and Ciampa?
Yes, I did. I watched the Halloween Havoc show. I'll say that. I watched the first week, and I was like, And then I just, my schedule, and I just kind of gave up on it. And I took it off my DVR rotation because I can get it a day later on Peacock. So I took it off the DVR. And if there's something that I hear is good, that it catches my eye, I'll watch it. So, like, I ended up watching the Halloween Havoc show. And I thought that show overall was good. And it kind of sent a statement that, like, this is the new NXT going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I liked the older NXT. I liked the fact that it was a spot under the WWE umbrella where guys that they normally wouldn't sign or pick up would migrate to there. That was where they would peak, like the Adam Coles or the Johnny Garganos or the Tommaso Ciampas or the Kyle O'Reillys, names like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was their indie. That was their version of Ring of Honor. That was, you know what I mean? And I thought that was a good place for them. And I think some of those guys could have eventually, with time and commitment, could have survived on the main roster or carved a spot on the main roster. Now, with this new NXT, I don't think that they have a shot. I know Gargano and O'Reilly's contracts are running out in December. I don't know what Ciampa's deal is like, but, those three guys right there, I can't see them having a solid place on the mid-card. I really can't. Unless Gargano were to come in with Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell and what's his name, Dexter Lumis, if they were to come into the main roster as the Way, as a group, I think that they could survive as a group, like a mid-card group.
Well, yeah, because Vince will have a hard-on for Austin Theory like he already did. But, everybody else is kind of on thin ice. Yeah,
so I don't know. I liked the older NXT. I liked the more underground feel to it. I liked it was more grittier. It was not PG, but it wasn't TV-14 either. It was It was that in between. Like I said, it was a home for guys that made a name for themselves in Ring of Honor, but they can go to WWE and peak at that NXT. Like me personally, I'm cool with Adam Cole being on AEW, but I would have liked to have seen what they could have done with Adam Cole as a babyface on NXT.
Well, the rumor is he was going to be Keith Lee's manager.
Yeah, I heard about that. Change his name, cut his hair, I don't know what they were thinking there. And that's the thing too, is that like, it seems like once they've done everything that they could do in NXT, when there is consideration for the main roster, the old man needs to reinvent the wheel and kind of take away what brought them to the dance.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that they were doing in NXT were just rehashes of ROH stuff from 10 years prior.
Yeah.
Example, Adam Cole and Kyle.
With that.
I know, and that's what wrestling is, but they can't think outside of the box enough anymore for these guys, so they end up releasing them. So let's segue into the releases.
Yeah.
I mean, Nia Jax, Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, who Karrion Kross was recently the NXT champion. What's going on with that? I thought he was a good talent. I guess they didn't see. I guess they're trying to save money. Any other releases that stood out to you that were like kind of shocking?
So there's Karrion Kross, Nia Jax,
Keith Lee, Mia Yim, his wife. I think that is due to a COVID situation, though.
Mia Yim,
Eva Marie, who they just recently brought back.
Davey Boy Jr.
Yeah, they brought him back, and he was in developmental, and then what's wrong, He
worked a dark match on the first live event when they brought back fans. It was like a TV taping. The first TV taping, I think, was in Houston. He worked a dark match, and then they had seen they interviewed him on .com, and they introduced him back, and he's coming back, etc. And then, boom, he's gone.
Yeah.
So, Keith Lee, he's very unique. He reminds me a lot of the way that Samoa Joe was presented when he first debuted in TNA.
Mm-hmm.
Big guy that could move around, do things that a guy his size normally can't do. I thought that was marketable. And NXT used that to their advantage. They marketed him that way. He became very popular. He got the belt. I thought he should have had a little bit longer run in NXT because I felt like the main roster was too crowded for him. And once he got to the main roster and it was like, change your look up, change your music. All right, he got a clean win over Randy Orton. That was good. But at the same time, they were trying to change too much of him. Like, he was dead in the water, in my opinion. And then once they gave him the Bearcat name, I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like, you might as well just call him Mantar at this point.
Same thing with Karrion Kross, the way that they...
Too, yeah. Another one. He went to NXT, he got hurt, won the belt, then he had to drop the belt, then he comes back, wins the belt again, has a decent run with the title, but then it's like, okay, now we're investing money in you, so you have to go to the main roster.
Right.
And then once again, reinvent the wheel, change the look up. Bring him to Raw, make it a big deal that he's the NXT champion, but losing 30 seconds to Jeff Hardy on TV. Like,
it almost seems like they punish people through booking,
I don't know if they call it punishment or if they want to just test these guys to see how they're going to. Because I listen to Bruce Pritchard fairly often and on his podcast. And
Prude Richard.
What's that?
Prude Richard. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, Prude Richard.
Yeah.
Brucey Pooh will tell stories of Vince in the past, just coming up with booking decisions and just seeing how the talent's going to react to it.
Right.
If they're willing to play ball, if you will. And I think that's what the Karrion Kross thing was. And then eventually it was going to lead to Scarlett coming back on the main roster. Then the overwhelming backlash that the fucking Roman Gladiator helmet, the demolition helmet that he wore on TV, they took him off TV, and they were going to change his look up. He was going to be more of like Christian Bale, American Psycho, kind of, which I think would have been good for him if they really committed to it. And then he gets let go. So I feel like, with him, Keith Lee, and then Nia Jax. Nia Jax came out right out the gate after she got let go and stated that she asked for a break because of her mental health. And
Right.
then when she asked for an extended break, they released her the next day. And that, to me, like, I could see her getting her job back fairly quickly, like within, I think, the next few months. It wouldn't surprise me if she comes back and she's a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble, because you don't fuck with mental health. Like, I'm sorry, you just don't, you know? And if they gave her a break for mental health and then she asked for an extension and they said no, and then they cut her loose, that's a big liability on their hands.
Be a star, Dave. Be a star.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
I
that's
could see
a
her,
tough.
out of all of them, getting her job back fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think she could definitely get her job back. What do you think the future holds for Keith Lee or Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux? I think Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux can go right back to Impact, because Impact
I was
is
thinking Impact or New Japan for them, at
True.
least for Kross.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, I know that he didn't leave on the greatest of terms with Impact Wrestling, and that's how he was able to get out of his. There was an issue that he had with his contract with them, so I
Interesting.
don't know if he'll be back there. Maybe maybe New Japan, maybe NWA. I would like to see the NWA benefit from a lot of these releases.
That would be cool.
Because, you know, them and Impact, I think, would benefit really well. Kross and AEW, they got way too many guys now. Way too many guys. Unless you're going to do a brand split, you know, there's just way too many guys in AEW for them to sign.
Too crowded. Too crowded.
I think Keith Lee could benefit from going to AEW because he's got a unique presentation. Big man, his size, limitless Keith Lee,
And
can do just about anything in the ring.
He's friends with all those guys too.
What's that?
He's friends with all those guys too. He's from.
Well, I could give a shit about his friendship with all those guys, but the fact that
Well, they're all
what
like
he
PWG guys. So
he brings something different
yeah.
to that presentation. He's not, 205 pounds or under, going in there and doing top rope hurricane ranas and tope suicidas out to the outside. He's a big dude doing all this stuff, so he brings that unique presentation. I think he'll stand out and benefit from going to AEW and then moving up the ladder fairly quickly for a guy his size. There,
Yeah,
so
I could see
think
him
out
and
of
Miro
all the
having some
releases-
good. I could see him and Miro having some good matches.
Yeah, him and Miro. I could see him in Omega. I could see him in Adam Cole. I mean, the list goes on and on. He's definitely got, I think, the most potential out of all the releases from WWE to land in AEW and be successful and not get lost in the shuffle like a lot of the recent signings that AEW has brought to their roster. But the rest of them, I would like to see a lot of those guys just kind of land, NWA, Impact, MLW, organizations that could use newer talent.
Yeah.
And just, go from there.
I could honestly see Keith Lee in MLW. Or I don't know about New Japan because Mia Yim is his wife, and they want to stay close together, and that would be some traveling issue unless she's going over there too. But I'm not sure if they're a package deal at this point, kind of like Karrion and Scarlett Bordeaux. Another release too that was interesting to me. I mean, not really. Actually, Ember Moon, she kind of just floundered in WWE. They gave her that push in NXT and then just never really did anything with her in the 6 years, Well,
she also was injured a couple of times too. She was out for a little bit. It seems like when they would start something with her, something would happen, injury, what have you. I mean, her best match, in my opinion, was the match she had with Asuka at that takeover a couple of years ago. I thought it was a great match. She's one that I think could help benefit AEW's women's division.
Yeah.
Because of her talent and her experience. That's someone that I think, another WWE release that could benefit in the AEW women's roster.
You want to know who I think could?
Right.
Frankie Monet. Recently released. That's Johnny Mundo's wife, or Johnny Drip Drip's wife.
Johnny Drip Drip, yeah.
Yeah. Taya Valkyrie is her name. I think she's a great wrestler. I think she's a great hand. She's got a good personality for being a heel in wrestling, and she can control a match. She gives you that old school style. And I don't know. I think they were on a roll with her in NXT, and then they just dropped the ball again. And I think I can definitely.
It wasn't like they weren't doing anything with her. She had a significant role on the program.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why did they just get rid of her? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Some of it's baffling to me, and the timing of it too is very poor. It seems like the last big set of releases that have taken place have all been like in and around the time they do their quarterly earnings reports.
I was just going to say that. I think it's to balance out the checks and balances. Some of these people will be brought back if they want to go back to that environment. But I think it's cost-cutting measures at this point. And the con man over there, the WWE con man, is making some extreme cuts.
Yeah, I'm not an accountant by any stretch of the imagination. It's a $1 billion corporation. They're a publicly traded company. They got to answer to people. I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but they put out fresh, even though it wasn't the greatest. They put out fresh new content on a weekly basis during a pandemic for over a year, and that's no live events with fans. That for over a year. And they're still they're renting out buildings to do their Thunderdome setup digitally. I can't imagine how much that costs for them to put that out. They were still trying to operate a business, during a pandemic. Granted, they were getting big TV money to do this, but you have to think that that they took a lot of loss during the pandemic, that these cuts make sense, at least the theory of just cutting people and, cost-cutting measure in and of itself, regardless of who they cut, so people look at it like.
I think it's also due to the fact that they're going to get back into traveling too. So yes, the cost-cutting measure is required when you have that much talent. Release some of the talent so they don't have to travel. Your card is a little smaller.
Mike Johnson wrote an article on PW Insider just probably about a day after all these releases, and they had indicated that the rumor mill is that some of these releases were COVID related, that some of these individuals were not vaccinated, which is a whole nother subject in and of itself.
Absolutely,
but
I think that's the idea with Keith Lee.
Because of the traveling and the COVID restrictions that are out there and vaccinations, like I went to the AEW show in October in Boston for a TV taping just a few weeks ago, and I had to show proof of vaccination just to get into the building. And there's a lot of venues that are doing that now for concerts and sporting events and wrestling and things like that. So the company's putting themselves at risk if they want to go somewhere, if they have a talent or multiple talents that decide that they don't want to be vaccinated. And like I said, that's another subject in and of itself. I could care less whether you are or you're not vaccinated. So let me just put that out there before I get lynched on social media. I don't care either way whether you're vaccinated or not. You want to talk about that, do that in your own time. But that, from the standpoint of the reason behind WWE's cuts, the vaccination status was a big issue from what I read.
Yeah. Some of the other releases, Grand Metalik and Lince Dorado, Lucha House Party. They could go to Japan, back to AAA. They can go to MLW. What?
About time.
Yeah. Oni Lorcan. He was a good hand in NXT. Part of the faction with Pete Dunne that formed with that was going on with Pat McAfee, and then they had what's the guy with the fucking hat that broke
Rich
his
Holland.
Yes, and Oni Lorcan was involved with actually, breaking his leg or his knee, whatever happened.
He wanted out for a while, I've read too. He just hated it.
Biff Busick, yeah, he's gonna go hang out with his friends in AEW, I think.
Probably.
And he'll end up on Evolution and Dark, just being real. Or he'll put on some fire matches like Bobby Fish, maybe. Be a good hand. Another release, Trey Baxter, who is also known as Blake Christian. He was part of the New Japan Strong beginning in the Super J Cup in America, and then he was part of the NXT Breakout Tournament. I think he can go back to NXT. I mean, not back to New Japan. I'm sorry. I think he can go back to New Japan and be a good hand there, or like I said, AEW. Impact would also be a cool spot for him. I can see him there. Here's another one, B-Fab from the Hit Row stable in NXT. Were you surprised by that one?
Yeah, only because they brought her up with the rest of that group to the roster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, she didn't do anything for me. She was like she was a dollar store Bianca Belair.
Oh.
I mean, in-ring was okay. She was very similar to Bianca Belair, and right now they're pushing Bianca as a top draw in the women's division. She didn't really do anything for me. It was so. Granted, they did just recently re-sign her to a main roster deal once they brought her up, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I guess they didn't see anything else in her, so they decided to just cut their losses with her. But yeah, nothing to write home about with her.
Yeah, they also released the lady that she was feuding with, Carmen Sandiego, or Crystal Carmen Lopez, or from the other faction, from the Hijo del Fantasma faction. So they released her too.
Wait a minute, the female Lopez?
Crystal Carmen Lopez, I think. Yep.
I don't think they let her go. She was on TV last week.
Really?
Or the other night. Yeah,
really?
I
had just screenshotted recent releases. Karrion Kross, Nia Jax, Keith Lee, Mia Yim, Harry Smith, Eva Marie, B-Fab of Hit Row, Gran Metalik and Lindsay Dorado, Katrina Cortez of Legado del Fantasma, Ember Moon, Frankie Bonet, Trey Baxter, Oni Lorcan, Zeta Ramir, Jesse Camilla, and everyone's favorite, Jeet Rama. That's as of November 5th. So I'm not sure. Maybe.
I thought I saw her on NXT.
Interesting. I didn't watch NXT this week, so.
Electra Lopez?
Yes.
She's still listed on their roster page.
Interesting. Okay.
And she was on NXT.
Okay.
I'm gonna look this up right now.
Might have been a misinformation though, but those were.
Yeah. No. I mean, it happens. Let me take a look real quick.
Absolutely.
Let me go to WWE and their NXT page on Instagram. Yeah, she was on TV the other night.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe.
She was on TV the other night. She was involved in an angle with that big tattooed. I forget the dude's name. Hold on, let me see what his name is. Jean Quinn, the Asian guy.
Jean Quinn. Yeah, he's like that. He's like that.
XYON.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's still on TV. She's still part of that faction.
Okay. All right. Well,
Tasma, whatever the fuck it is.
Misinformation then.
No, it's all good. I mean, fuck, they'll probably release her soon anyway, so you may as well just keep her on the list.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other thoughts of releases and anything else before we move on?
We see more. I mean, and you know, you and I kind of talked about this, and I've alluded to it in other conversations. But I mean, when it comes to the brand split itself, like on the main roster, I feel like they need to just, you know, merge the rosters.
Oh, yeah.
and start cutting some fat, you know, with guys that they don't use. Make it one roster. I'm tired of seeing, you know, they don't even stick to it half the time. You know, there's no real like guidelines or parameters regarding the split, and this champion just shows up for no fucking reason, unadvertised, because they need to pop a rating. They trade this guy over this show, but there's no consistency with it. It's been that way since 2002 when they started the draft in the split to begin with. Like, it just keep it at one roster, and if you're not using somebody, I mean, I get it. They need guys on the bench in case someone gets hurt, but they have way too much talent. I mean, the list of names that they let go starting from last year in the pandemic to now is about the size of a roster you would see in the mid-90s.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean? Like, there was like 80-something guys, and that was like the size of what WCW had for talent in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. I mean, if you're not, I don't know. I mean, I think they realized that AEW, they are what they are, and they offer a different schedule for talent and pay them at a good rate to wrestle for them on a limited basis. And so therefore, let these talents go. They don't need to, because they signed a lot of guys and a lot of girls, so they wouldn't go to AEW.
Right.
So I don't know. Just,
the Good Brothers being an example, and then they end up in Impact.
Oh, I know. That was disappointing for me, just because I don't know. I like the Good Brothers, but I mean,
have you watched any Impact lately?
No, I have not. Unfortunately, I don't have the channel, and
okay.
I have the app, but I don't keep up with like the regular show. Which to me, I thought like that whole Impact AEW relationship really was to benefit AEW. I don't see what Impact got out of it. I really don't.
They got a little boost in TV, but they're working with New Japan still.
Yeah.
With the Bullet Club feuding and factions, which is kind of cool. But their TV's been pretty consistently good. I enjoy the production. It's not all a bunch of cutting like WWE. I just can't stand watching WWE anymore because it's like too many cuts in the camera. And for me, that's like, I don't know. I lose.
You know what bothers me about WWE right now is I've said this before, it's overproduced, but for a long period of time during the pandemic, they obviously had to create fan reactions like when the guys were in the ring, but now they're piping in crowd noise.
Oh yeah.
During matches and during interview segments and the backstage stuff, like it's way overproduced.
Oh, I knew that was going to be a thing. I knew that was going to be a thing. Yeah.
I was hoping that they would have gotten rid of that because there was fans coming back, but I don't know. It's just I'm kind of at a point now as a wrestling fan where I have a ton of stuff on my DVR, but I will fast forward through a good chunk of it. If there's something I hear that's good, I'll watch it. Otherwise, if I'm home, I'm not trying so hard to catch up on all my wrestling.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I'm the same. I got the little one, so I've just been on the Plex server, thanks to Dan, who's got an infinite library of wrestling. So I've been indulging in old school stuff when I do laundry or if I'm chilling out for a little bit. But yeah, otherwise I kind of just fast forward like you through stuff, and I do enjoy the CM Punk promos on AEW and his matches, and Bryan Danielson's and some other things on AEW. But I feel like recently they've, with Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, those guys that they've been working with, minus a few with Powerhouse Hobbs, those guys are the WWE style. They've wrestled with them before or in the WWE, It's more their speed. So would you agree that Daniel Bryan and CM Punk bring a different speed or like level to AEW rather than everybody else? Or am I wrong to say that?
I think we're seeing Bryan Danielson's American Dragon presentation a little bit more. in AEW. He's been able to do things more technically in the ring that he wasn't able to do in WWE. So he's bringing more technical wrestling to the presentation. I think their name value is from WWE is helping, but I think that I think Punk's already been overexposed. And
it's every week. It's every week.
They find a way to shoehorn him in. It's like, all right, we're going to have him cut a promo in the ring. Okay, but then on Rampage, we're going to have him do commentary. But then on Dynamite, he's going to do commentary that's going to lead to an angle. And then on Dynamite or on Rampage, he'll do another promo from that said angle. You know what I mean? Or he'll have a match against a random, and then it's going to bounce off and follow up with it. You know what I mean? I'm digging the Eddie Kingston stuff, but at the same time, it's like they're finding, like, he was on Dynamite this week he didn't cut a promo, and he didn't have a match, and he didn't do commentary at the table. He had a backstage altercation with Eddie Kingston. I thought that was good.
But great. Eddie Kingston is phenomenal.
I like Eddie Kingston, but I think he needs to slow down on his promos. He gets so fired up and worked up that like he stumbles over his words. You know, I think if he slows it down a little bit, I think, you know, people call him this version of Piper and Dusty, which is fucking laughable. But he's emotional, and I think that if he just kind of like centered it and didn't rush what he was going to say, it would come across better. Like, I just watched the video package with him and Punk for the pay-per-view, and he was, you know, very, like, low-tone, monotone, quiet. He was slow in his delivery, but he made his points. Like, that was great.
Right.
But when he gets on the mic and he's like, "Yo, little bitch,"
right.
He gets too fired up, and then it's like, you know, he goes off. Yeah. Like, you could tell in that face-off he had with Punk in the promo, Punk was kind of trying to bring things back in that promo. It was almost like Kingston went off the deep end, and Punk was trying to kind of bring it back a little bit.
Like you said, center it.
Yeah, slow down. Yeah. You know, if he slows down and he stays focused on what he's going to say, instead of just trying to make sure he gets everything out and try to remember everything, then I think he'll be fine. But people think he's like God's gift to the microphone, and currently, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think he brings something different. I like his presentation, but he's not the greatest on the microphone like everyone makes him out to be.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's great. I'm not saying he is the greatest, but he is a standout in AEW for sure. Other recent news, Jon Moxley seeking support, rehab, inpatient for alcohol. Dave, you want to talk about this? You also kicked your habit. Do you want to, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I never went to alcohol treatment. Like, I never went to like a rehab center. But I'm going on 10 years in January, where I haven't had a drop. But yeah, I mean, you know, everyone reaches a certain point in their life, you know, where they reach a certain threshold, and they're like, okay, enough's enough. And he must have reached that at some point. You know, and that's good that, you know, he recognized that, and he wants to go get help. I mean, that's the major thing too with people that suffer from that have suffered from substance abuse issues, is that you have to be the one to recognize it first and want to get the help before anything can get done. And so that's what he's doing. AEW supports it. I support, you know, I support that 100%.
I absolutely do.
Want nothing but the best for him. Wrestling will always be here. Go handle your shit and get well for yourself, for your newborn, for your family.
Yep.
And, you know, and that's that. I mean, you can't knock it, you know. And I thought when Punk cut that promo and incorporated that into his promo, I thought it was very well done.
I did too.
You know, he didn't overdo it. He didn't, you know, glorify it, but, you know, he just said, you know, if you need help, go get help. It's okay. You know,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that I learned when I decided it was time for me to retire from the drinking team, was I needed to better myself, my health, for my long-term future. And I mean, I started going to AA for and I'm a firm believer, this is just me, that like everyone's different, and everyone's way of getting help is different. Whether it's a 12-step, whether it's a rehabilitation program, or whether it's just cold turkey. And and I did it cold turkey. I tried AA for about 6 months, and for the people that were in that program, those meetings I would go to, that worked for them. It
works if you work it. I've been to those meetings.
If you work it, but at the same time, you also have to understand it and connect with it. Like for
Absolutely.
me, I would go to those meetings, and more often than not, the majority of the adults that were in that room wanted to hurt themselves or kill themselves with alcohol because of things that took place in their life. My story was a little bit different. I was just stupid when I drank. I didn't know how to handle my liquor, and I would do dumb things. Right. I wasn't depressed. I didn't want to hurt myself. I didn't want to kill myself. Okay? So that's when I realized, okay, maybe this isn't for me. But I had my come to Jesus moment when I woke up in the hospital from my car accident from drinking and realized I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's enough for me. Okay? Everybody's different. How they handle it different. As long as you're helping yourself and you're sticking to it and you're getting help, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And I'm not knocking AA. I'll be honest with you. I'm not knocking AA. It's not for everybody, but for the people that it's for, it works. Okay? Rehabilitation, it helps. It works. You know what I mean? I'm no better than anybody else, but my approach was different, and it's worked for me for the last almost 10 years now. So
that's awesome.
For Moxley, keep doing what you're doing, man. I support it. I respect it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
A lot of people can't sit here and say that, that with pride, a lot of people's pride gets in the way, but, a lot of people can't say, like, I need help.
Right.
He's doing that. The company supports it. And, take as much time as you need. And, wrestling will always be here.
Very cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Dave. I didn't mean for you to divulge that much, but I do appreciate it. And I do send, positive vibes to John Moxley and hope you get better. I mean, take care of yourself. Absolutely. Right on. Any other stuff from AEW you want to talk about before we move on?
I mean, I went to the show in Boston a couple weeks ago, their Halloween episode, which was pretty fun.
How was that? How was the presentation?
I had fun. I had a good time. I went with a group of friends. A buddy of mine, he actually had a private suite, like a box, that he rented out. And so I bought a ticket from him. And, I'll be honest with you, going to a wrestling I haven't been to a wrestling show since January of 2020. I went to an indie show in Connecticut locally. And I saw Brian Pillman Jr., Darby Allin, Road Warrior Animal, Bob Backlund, just to name a few. So that was the last show I went to before,
Wait, Bob Backlund wrestling?
So this is the first show.
Hold on. Sorry. Was Bob Backlund wrestling on that card?
No, he didn't. No, he made an appearance. He put some local guy in the chicken wing. Some local heel in the chicken wing because they disrespected him, because he was signing his book.
Gotcha.
So he was there to pretty much promote his book.
Did he hand out business cards for his construction company?
I don't know, but I'll be honest with you. He was taking pictures of he was signing the book and taking pictures, and then he cut the promo and did the spot in the ring with the local guy. But I didn't see any business cards. But next time if he's locally in an event, I'll have to ask if he's still. He delivers oil. Yeah,
I know. I know. We're just carrying on the continuous joke of Bob Backlund and his construction company. Yeah. Meanwhile, we're doing a podcast and getting paid nothing, talking wrestling. Okay. So go ahead.
We're advertising some wrestler's construction company and not getting paid for it.
So. Right. So go ahead with your story about the AEW experience.
Fun. I went to a show. I went to the AEW show in Boston on the 27th, and I had a lot of fun with my brother, Dennis Levy, who co-hosts Kicking Out Too with me, a buddy of mine, Tito. He was the one that had the suite set up. I'll be honest with you, man. I've gone to a couple shows with Tito in those private boxes, and that's the way to go. Like, it really is. Like, as opposed to like sitting in the crowd next to like a stranger. You know, I got room. I can get up. I can stand. There's a server. She comes in. She asks if you want something to drink. You want something to eat.
Very
the
cool.
bathroom's right there. You're not waiting in the concession line. I did that at NXT a couple of years ago. I saw TakeOver in Bridgeport the night that Adam Cole won the title from Johnny Gargano.
Okay.
And that was a lot of fun too. So, I mean, if I have to, like, I'll keep doing that instead of like buying tickets to an actual, like in an actual seat, because that's just, to me, that's just the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a small arena. Only sat like 3,500 people, maybe like 4,000 people total. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It's a long night. They tape Dark and Dark Elevation before Dynamite. Then they do Rampage afterwards. So I walked out of there probably, I'd say, like 11:15.
Okay.
But it's funny. The crowd's into it. The AEW crowds are a lot of fun. They're very into it. In between, I think, Dynamite and Rampage, Tony Khan came out, and he was almost like the hype man. Like, he was hyping up the show. Like, he was like, "Are you guys excited to see Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston? Yeah!" Like, he was fired up.
Awesome.
Like, which I could appreciate that. At the same time, it just felt very, like, corny and forced, but overall, it was a fun night. I'd highly suggest going to a show. They're a lot of fun, and the crowd was into it. I thought the show itself, it was a Halloween edition, so it was a lot of fun. I really had a good time, and if AEW comes closer to where I live, then maybe I'll take the opportunity to go check them out again.
Very cool. Yeah, I never talked about it, but we went to ROH Best in the World in July of this year, 2021. And it was sectioned out, it was spaced out for the seats. So we were able to sit, but then, like the row ahead of us, there was nobody in there, and the row behind us, there was nobody in there, but there was people to the sides of us, like spaced out, like 4 or 5 chairs each. So it was at the UMBC, like basketball arena that they have there, a little like, they call it the Chesapeake Center now. But anyhow, it's part of the college, UMBC. So it's a little venue. So there was like hardly, any people there, like a couple hundred. And yeah, that crowd there is interesting. I love ROH, but some of the people there, yeah, fun stuff. There was like 2 ladies screaming the entire time, anytime Matt Taven was on the screen or mentioned. So he has some little groupies that follow him. That was funny. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on. Let's do a little special segment called This Day in History. Today in History. November the 12th is what we're talking about right now. November the 12th, 1965, Maurice Mad Dog Vachon defeated the Crusher to win the AWA World Heavyweight title for the 4th time. Then, exactly 1 year later, 1966, Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher's tag team partner, defeated Mad Dog Vachon for the AWA title. Yeah. And then, in 2003, TNA held their weekly pay-per-view in Nashville, Tennessee at the Nashville Fairgrounds, and it was the in-ring return of Lex Luger, his first match since being arrested since Miss Elizabeth had died in his home. The main event was Sting and AJ Styles defeating Lex Luger and Jeff Jarrett. Styles pinned Luger after Sting hit Luger with the baseball bat and some splashes, and Luger had Styles in the torture rack. But yeah, Sting and AJ Styles beat Lex Luger and Jeff Jarrett. Any thoughts on that?
I used to watched the weekly TNA, so I totally forgot that Luger was on there, and then he actually wrestled. But on another note regarding Luger, I've been waiting for a while. I don't know why, but maybe it's just because I'm a mark for Luger. But I've been waiting for WWE to put that Icon special out on him.
I know. What happened with those?
They were supposed to do one for like 4th of July or something regarding him and the Lex Express and all this stuff, and I don't know what happened, but they never put it out on the Peacock. So I'm interested in his story. I'm interested in hearing him talk about his story, his fall from grace, if you will, because he's very open about the mistakes he's made in wrestling, and he takes full responsibility for the Miss Elizabeth thing.
Well, maybe do you think that's it? Do you think that's why WWE doesn't want to feature that?
Well,
because even the Dark Side of the Ring that came out this past season, he was on it.
I don't understand why they would send a camera crew to his home and interview him for a special if they didn't want to feature it. You know what I mean? Maybe they're waiting. I don't know. He was involved in that.
Yeah. It might be collateral to I don't know. They're doing like collateral damage, just making sure right now that everything is fine. Maybe they'll release it next year, or let it cool off from the Dark Side of the Ring stuff.
Part of me feels like that they might hold that off with him, and then they do it coinciding with him going into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I can see them putting him in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
That's just me personally. I could be wrong, but I can see them putting him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. All right.
I think there's a Davey Boy one too that they recorded that they were supposed to do, and it never came out either.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of those, so I'm not sure what's going on with that.
You saw the Yokozuna one, right?
Yes, that was very well done.
Yeah, the Yokozuna one, the RVD, and then the Beth Phoenix they put out.
I haven't watched the RVD or the Beth Phoenix ones, but I will check those out.
The RVD one was pretty good. I like the RVD one. I was always a big RVD guy. So.
Same here. Also today in history, 2006, it was the first set of Wrestling Society X tapings in Los Angeles. The main event was Vampiro defeating Sean Waltman to become the first WSX champion. Did you ever watch Wrestling Society X, Dave?
No, I did. It was on MTV, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I heard things about it, but some of the names that came out of that...
Tyler Black, Seth Rollins, Jimmy Jacobs, they were in a team together there. I used to watch it. Vampiro, Sean Waltman were showcased there, but then there were some younger guys.
Now, was that their version they were trying to recreate ECW?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay. But it kind of had like a Lucha Underground vibe to it.
Yep.
At the same time.
Exactly. It was kind of more cinematic with the, the backstage stuff and the themes of the feuds and everything. But yeah, I used to watch it here and there. I'm trying to think of who else was featured. They would have like music artists too that would be like the guests. So they had like Zach Wilde from the Black Label Society. They had 3-6 Mafia. They had Good Charlotte on there. They had Pitbull, Styles P, Newfound Glory. They would host each episode. So it was a mix of music and wrestling.
Interesting.
Yeah, they had Ricky Banderas, who later becomes El Macias, who also is Mil Muertes from Lucha Underground. So an interesting tie in there, Vampiro as well.
Matt Sydal, wasn't he a part of that too?
Correct. I'm looking for the roster here. Let's go through the roster. See, I'm not recognizing any of these. Jack Evans, he was on there. Joey Ryan, Justin Incredible, Luke Hawks. Luke Hawks. Yep. Matt Cross, Matt Sydal, Matt Classic, New Jack, Puma, Scorpio Sky.
Puma, he was he's Ricochet, I believe, right?
No, this was TJ Perkins. under a mask. I'm sorry.
Because Ricochet was Prince Puma in Lucha Underground, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Scorpio.
So there's Puma and then there's Prince. I got you.
Yeah, Scorpio Sky was in the company as well.
Interesting.
Teddy Hart.
That doesn't surprise me.
And
He needs a payday.
Tyler Black, who is Seth Rollins, is probably the most famous. Vic Grimes from ECW.
Oh God! Well, him and New Jack in the same fucking promotion again.
Yeah. Oh man. So it was an interesting dichotomy there. I think at some point, who's the guy that produced Lucha Underground? What's his name again? Why am I blanking on his name?
Dario.
No. The real guy. Friends with Quentin Tarantino. Robert Rodriguez. I'm pretty sure Robert Rodriguez had caught Wrestling Society X and was like, "Oh, I could do this, but like Lucha," you know?
Okay. Gotcha.
It was similar to that in that way.
Okay.
That's it. This has been today in wrestling history. This day in history. Dave. Anything else you want to chop up or talk about? Dark Side of the Ring. Did you enjoy this last season?
I don't have the channel, so the last one I watched it on Daily Motion was the FMW Onita episode, which I didn't know anything about that. I didn't have any knowledge about. So that was interesting. That story was interesting as to how Onita and FMW were formed and the fall from grace that the company had, but all the crazy like the story that Sabu told while him and his uncle wrestled Onita and some other fucking guy.
And the fire got too hot that they burned like 60% of the Sheik's body.
Yeah, they lit the ring on fire, but it was like I was like, holy cow! I was like, this is not. And then like when the first thought in my mind when I watched that clip was like, no wonder why Jim Cornette hates wrestling so much. It was like I don't blame some of these old timers for being like, what the fuck is this?
Well, guess what? My buddy Dan just recently went to a show in Trenton, New Jersey, and Onita wrestled another guy in a death match there, and the same thing, a huge fireball, and the guy burnt himself pretty bad.
Jesus Christ.
Yep, and they did it in like a baseball stadium.
It seems like deathmatch wrestling, though, is kind of making a little bit of a comeback on the mainstream with that Dark Side of the Ring episode with Nick Gage that really...
Yeah, Game Changer Wrestling is presenting a lot of the deathmatch stuff. I mean, Matt Cardona got involved with it. CZW is a tournament held in Delaware. Yearly they have the Tournament of Death there. So it's a resurgence in a way. The underground following has gotten more, more into it.
I think what Cardona has done to market himself with that audience has been genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like what Mick Foley was in the mid '90s with ECW when he was very anti-hardcore.
Absolutely.
That heel Cactus Jack in 1995 ECW. I thought that what Cardona has done to market himself in that way has been genius. Like he's really he stepped away from Zack Ryder, but at the same time he's also taken the ideas behind the machine, as they like to call it, being WWE, with his character and have thrown it in the face of the complete opposite audience like GCW.
Yeah.
So I think it's been very well done. And he's done a great job to market himself right now currently as being like very anti-hardcore. Mm-hmm. So I really like what he's been doing. He's really stepped up, and I'm actually kind of surprised. I mean, I know he wrestles for Impact right now. I'm actually kind of surprised he's not on AEW currently at this moment. He did a couple of shots for them back in the spring, but I'm really enjoying. I've been following him on social media, and I've been really enjoying what he's been doing with GCW.
Yeah, he's actually got a nice little spot on Impact, though. He's getting pushed kind of towards the title in a way. Moose was able to cash in his gauntlet match win, or his Battle Royal win from Bound for Glory, and defeated Josh Alexander, who had just gotten through a hell of a match with the champion at the time, Christian. Man, were you able to catch that at all?
Didn't catch that. I heard the match was great.
It's great.
And I heard the finish was good, and
Yep.
that, even at the end with Moose, like the whole thing to set up his run in to get the title, I heard that was very well done.
Yeah, so this past week they had Moose teaming with Morrissey and Minoru Suzuki going against Matt Cardona, Eddie Edwards, and Josh Alexander. And I'm digging Josh Alexander the more that I see him. He's got that presentation of wrestling. He's got the strap suit and then the headgear as well, which is pretty cool. It's like a throwback. It reminds me of Kurt Angle fused with Christian a bit, if that makes any sense. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm digging Josh Alexander, and I like the chase that's going on right now with Impact. That's some good stuff that I've been watching recently. I did watch New Japan G1 Climax, and have been catching up on the Power Struggle stuff. So I will be dropping a Gaijin Wrestling Radio for you guys. Have my studio set up finally, so I will be recording and pulling some of the weight. Finally, so back on the saddle again. Finally!
For fuck's sake, you've been supposed to be dropping Gaijin since July.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened? I mean, God forbid you have a wife and a kid and all the other stuff.
I know,
Jesus.
yeah, true,
Tell
yeah.
your baby to just keep down, quiet, and then maybe you could record a couple of guys, put a few in the bank. You know what I mean?
Exactly. She's keeping me busy on my toes, but she does enjoy.
In all seriousness, I'm happy for you. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Everything's going good.
She does enjoy watching wrestling when I have her in her little jumper thing. I'll put on some wrestling and fold clothes or hang out with her for a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah, so she enjoys it, but I don't want to encourage the violence because she's a slapper. She'll slap me in the face. So we're trying to teach her to be gentle. She's only 8 months, so she's still a little green, dude. So we're trying to get her into developmental, and then we'll give her the push.
So her working punches are worse than her shoot punches, is what you're saying.
Yeah. She's a little snug, if you will.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about it, right? I mean, we've caught up pretty much since the last time we've spoke.
Yeah.
I
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. I had a lot of fun. This has been a lot of fun. I'll definitely, I don't foresee my basement being done next month, so we can resume this operation.
Absolutely.
For the month of December.
Absolutely.
And catch up.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a holiday special.
Oh, cool.
We'll try and make it a little more interesting, a little more fun.
Yeah.
And requests, we still take them. So by all means, if your name's not Nick Opalewski and you want to give us a special request on what you'd like to cover or watch, by all means, hit us up in our DMs at WretroMania, or Coby Nida personally on Facebook, or myself, Dave Rosenbluth, or you can whatever. But yeah, Nick, keep the requests coming. We'll make sure we get them out there for you. But
we will
like
eventually.
Everybody else is sharing the fun too. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Find us on any podcasting platform by searching WretroMania with a W. You can write to us at retromaniapodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at retromaniapod. And rate, review, share, subscribe. It helps us grow. Thank you for all the listens. There's been a lot of listens lately. I'm digging it. So keep enjoying and sharing and posting, and we'll grow. Dave, sign off where we can find you, and we will talk to you next time.
You can find me on Kicking Out at 2, Facebook.com/Kicking Out at 2, as well as our Twitter at Kicking Out 2, KICKNOUT, and the number 2. Links to archive shows on the WretroMania. Search for, if you want to find Kicking Out at 2 shows, you can find them on the WretroMania archive link. Hoping to be back by the new year so I can kick things off, get up and running. But in the meantime, catch up on the archives over at WretroMania with a W.
Bye.